they had a certain something.
Enrique just walked into the room. Right away I said, my God, this kid is like a star.
He had all the charisma you could possibly need.
He's just a hottie.
They chased one goal relentlessly.
Right. He had a single idea in mind, was success.
During Hurricane Andrews in Miami, Enrique would still get together with some guys in a garage with no power and still practice and write songs.
Through struggles,
when you come from such a musical family and you're the son of Julio Iglesias, it's not easy getting into the music business.
People thought, oh well, he's just taking advantage of his daddy's last name.
Julio wasn't happy at first. He's going to be a what? A musician?
and setbacks.
He had some technical problems in the developing of his voice.
Everyone rejected him. Sony, Polygram, BMG, you name it.
Somebody starts saying that they had a tape of Enrique singing the song Rhythm Divine, and it was awful.
Some people are just driven. An ambitious boy's single-minded pursuit of superstardom.
He said, I know my father could help me, but I want to know if I can make it or not. I want to start like any other kid. I want to start from the bottom.
Never before seen images.
This is Enrique, who likes girls like crazy.
Stories and revelations from the people who know what really happened.
We were on vacation with my mother. My grandfather got kidnapped.
When someone's kidnapped and you don't know if that person's alive or dead, it's a scary thing. It affected him in a major way.
Because they lived it with him.
He lived almost like a double life.
He was determined to do what he wanted to do against anyone, and I mean anyone.
This is Driven, Enrique Iglesias.
Enrique was born in Madrid, Spain, May 8th, 1975. My sister is the oldest, my brother's the youngest, and I'm in the middle.
He was famous already when he was born.
His dad is Julio Iglesias.
He had done a lot of Spanish records and he was very successful.
He was the most famous entertainer in the world.
He is a real institution in Spain.
My mom's from the Philippines. She's Filipino-Spanish.
His mother was as famous as a movie star in Spain.
My mom was very beautiful, and you know my dad, he likes beautiful women.
They were pretty regular kids.
We went to school, church every Sunday.
And his parents made sure that that was part of their life, you know, to be as normal as possible, to fit into society with no problem.
My dad didn't spend a lot of time in the house. He was always touring. He was traveling a lot during that time.
The father being out on tour a lot meant some loneliness of not seeing your father.
Being the son of people who are so famous will make you feel a little lonely because your parents are so involved in their careers and sometimes far away.
Elvira Olivares was the governess to the children.
She's been with us since we were born.
She was very important in their lives because both father and mother were busy in their careers.
She brought them up, all three of them up. She was like a mother to Enrique.
She has her beliefs about being proper, kind.
She's taught us pretty much everything we know, from how to pray every night, manners, to how to eat.
She treated Enrique like a young man. She's an angel.
Enrique was 5 years old when my parents divorced. My mother remarried, and my dad moved to the U.S. straight to Miami.
They were constantly going back and forth. They visited their father on tour.
He used to put us on stage when we were very little, and he used to freak us out. We were so shy, you know, just to go up on stage with all those millions of people.
But they were just happy to spend time with their father.
December 1981, we were on vacation with my mother. My grandfather got kidnapped.
The kidnapping took place in Spain.
They put him into a car coming out of his apartment, and they just took him away, and they kept him for about a month and a half. My dad got really scared.
When someone's kidnapped and you don't know if that person's alive or dead, it's a scary thing.
The police actually rescued him.
El hecho de que mi padre esté aquí con nosotros ya es ya poco atestado. Yo no quiero saber lo que hubiera pasado si hubiera habido problemas.
Any kidnapping affects any family, especially a family that is very public. It affected them in a major way.
My dad got his bodyguards.
Spain was pretty dangerous at the time.
My father said, bring the kids to Miami so they're safe from the terrorist group.
Enrique moved to the States when he was 8 years old. He lived with his grandmother because his father was always traveling.
It was difficult for us to move to the States.
Leaving what you thought was home to come to a new place and barely speaking English. It's a whole new world.
Come here, cold turkey. It's like, whoa, you know, from one day to another. And here they had to start a new life, completely new life, you know.
We used to hate it because we missed our mother, we missed our friends. My dad bought a house for my grandma, our nanny, my brother, my sister, and I.
This is Enrique, who likes girls like crazy. Il adore les femmes comme fou, lui.
Enrique and I went to Gulliver School here in Miami.
Gulliver was a private school, very selective. You had to take an entrance exam, and they don't really care who you are or what family you come from.
I saw Enrique become embarrassed when people tried to make a big deal out of who he was. So I think it might have been a little difficult for him.
He didn't want to be accepted because his last name was, Iglesias.
I expected someone to be spoiled, someone to be conceited, and here's this kid that just blended in with everyone else.
He was just one of the boys.
Enrique would go to school in a station wagon. He would wear the same clothes as everyone else did. He would have a ripped up book bag.
He had to be home at a certain time.
He had a normal allowance, just like everyone else. $10 a week to eat, and that was it.
He did his work, but he was no genius. He was a good, hard-working kid most of the time. Most of the time, I say.
Enrique was in trouble on a daily basis.
He was a little bit mischievous.
He's a prankster.
You get 8-hour detentions on Saturdays, and he pretty much ran the detention center. He just do stupid things.
He used to throw papers at people.
Putting signs on your back.
If anything, he was maybe a little less mature.
He was an athlete. He loved sports.
He went windsurfing a lot after school.
That was like pretty much a religious type of thing.
He was a great soccer player.
Enrique got kicked off the soccer team.
Enrique was not popular with girls.
No one took him serious, you know?
He was sort of skinny and gangly.
We were kind of the dorks.
I can remember him with his little, they wore Bermuda shorts as part of their uniform, and these little hairy, skinny legs.
Quite a few girls that just turned him down. He was definitely not what they consider a girl player.
He wasn't popular with girls, more because he was so shy. English, because it was a second language, sometimes was difficult, and I do remember him coming on the sly, because you wouldn't want your friends to know that you're asking your English teacher for any extra help. And it was the idea that I don't understand it, but I certainly don't want anybody to know that I'm asking for help.
He was terribly particular about who he would share things or himself with.
Enrique followed all the Anglo music. He always made it a point to go to every concert. When we would go to the shows, he's like, wow, this is cool. One of these days, I'll be up there.
It was obvious that he had the desire to do something related to music.
After school, me and Andres would be playing sports, and of course he'd be writing or doing something of the sort, that none of us knew about.
It was kind of strange sometimes. I'd be like, it's windy as hell. You don't want to go windsurfing? He's like, no, I gotta go do this. I go, okay.
Enrique was very quiet about the stuff he was doing.
He would, in fact, stay up all night, and he would spend his time writing songs.
He was very serious. He was very into it.
I had no idea that the feeling of music that he had went that far.
He made up his mind that he was going to be a singer. You can tell he was out there to prove something, and he was determined to do it on his own.
Next, Enrique's singing career gets off to a shaky start.
My first feeling was that he had some technical problems in the developing of his voice.
His voice was very, very green. It wasn't really ripe.
Then, Enrique fights hard to make a name for himself.
He was thinking, okay, well, how am I going to market myself?
His family probably would have made a couple phone calls and helped him out.
Enrique wanted to do that on his own without any attachment to the name of Iglesias.
Later, Enrique gets his first exposure in front of the lens.
They weren't even sure he could even perform. It was a kissing scene. It was like he never kissed a girl before.
Enrique and Julio Jr. were staying at the grandmother's house. I was helping them out with the homework, taking them to different places, the stores, the movies, bowling.
Mario Martinelli was a friend of the family since Enrique got to the States. He was a real good friend to Enrique, probably the closest friend.
He had learned that I have a small recording studio. So I took him to my house. He liked the studio when he saw it. He started, playing around with the stuff. He says, Mario, I want to ask you something. Can you teach me how to sing? Because I want to be a singer. I am not a singing teacher, but I took like 13 years of opera. I can train you the best I can. He said, well, first you have to promise me that you're not going to tell anybody.
And he wanted to make sure that it did not leak anywhere.
I don't want my father to know. I don't want my mother to know, nor anybody. I want to do it on my own.
They had called me to join them and work with them. Enrique just walked into the room. He was wearing jeans and they were torn and a t-shirt. And right away I said, my God, this kid is like a star.
We wanted to actually try him to see how it was going to work. So I said, Enrique, put the headphones, here is the mic, and let's get the sound.
Enrique had this sort of like raspy, different voice.
His voice was very, very green. It wasn't really ripe. He was not satisfied with his voice. He says, Mario, I really need to work on this. I used to pick him up and just take him over to my house. He wanted to practice even if he was feeling sick.
We were in Andrews in Miami. When everybody was worried, Enrique would still get together with some guys in a garage with no power and still practice and write songs.
He wanted to write his own songs, so he had a chance to express himself.
I would sit at the piano and we would play chords and come up with a melody and lyrics. Enrique wanted very simple melodies. He would tell you, major chords. Julio also was into very simple melodic lines. And Enrique was following that pattern.
I would get to his house, like if we were to go to the movies or something, he's in the shower singing. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound familiar. I'm like, where did that music come from? And it would be his songs.
His friends would call him to go out. He said, no, I can't go out now because I'm doing some work.
His family called me, do you know where Enrique is? I'm like, no, I guess he's at the beach. It's like 9 o'clock at night, Be stuck in the studio.
He was so disciplined, which is such an odd thing for a kid.
His father was dedicated to his job, 110%. Enrique always admired that about his father.
He had all his father's CDs and all his father's trophies and awards, and he would look up, and he'd say, I want to be like him or maybe bigger than him.
Enrique went to University of Miami for about a year and a half.
The parents wanted him to study.
He put on paper a business major. What did he really study? Nobody knows.
He would call me up and say, what courses are you taking? And I'd be like, what do you mean what courses I'm taking? I'm already registered.
When you're in college, you go as you please. And that was Enrique's launch right there.
He never completed the business course at the university.
He really didn't care about school at that point. He was full-blown in his music.
We were writing a lot of songs in my house, but since my room is very small, they needed a larger studio to do a professional demo.
The studio comes out to be extremely expensive. He didn't have the money.
It was $7,500. He didn't want to ask his father for the money because he said, what do you want $7,500 for? He would have to explain.
If he told his family, they'd tell him, shut up, go to school, get your degree, and get a real, a normal job. And so he went to his nanny, Rita, and asked for some money and says, hey, can you, spot me on this one? I'll pay you back one of these days. No one just hands out that kind of money to anyone and just says, okay, especially to a kid.
She says, no, don't worry about it. I'll give you the money.
That's the type of lady she is. She's like, an angel on his shoulder.
Enrique's first demo tape consisted of one Spanish song and 2 English songs.
He actually played me one of his songs on his demo, and I thought it was just amazing. I was like, wow, that's going to be a hit.
It was not like the rest of Spanish music that was played at the time. It was definitely much more Anglo, if you want to call it that. His songs tend to be sort of sad, like, you left me and I love you and you're not with me.
He said, Mario, I know I have a small voice, but I know I can get to the heart of the people.
He was thinking, okay, well, how am I going to market myself? How am I going to sell this demo tape to someone?
His family probably would have made a couple of phone calls and helped him out.
He said, I know my father could help me, but I want to know if I can make it or not.
Enrique wanted to do that on his own without any attachment to the name of Iglesias.
He says, I want to start like any other kid. I want to start from the beginning. I want to start from the bottom. He used another name because he didn't want to put Iglesias on the tape.
You'd go with Enrique Martinez.
He sent a demo tape to 2 or 3 labels.
Everyone rejected him. Sony, Polygram, EMG, you name it.
In the music business, sometimes they hurt you a lot, and you have to go through a lot, and some people cannot actually take it.
When someone tells you no, it's very easy to put your head down and say, all right, I'll try something else.
Every time he got rejected, he'd go back in the studio and try to make the song even better.
He was determined to do what he wanted to do against anyone, and I mean anyone.
Enrique, give up? Never.
You knock him down, but he's going to come back at you twice as hard.
Next, Enrique's big secret goes public.
Julio wasn't happy at first, and he was basically paying for college, and he's going to be a what? A musician?
He was in shock. Are you sure you know what you're getting into? This is ruthless. This business is, you're hot today and gone tomorrow.
And the critics attack.
People thought, oh well, he's just taking advantage of his daddy's last name.
He didn't want to be the son of Julio. He just wanted to be Enrique Iglesias.
Later, Enrique faces his toughest opponent.
For the first time ever, a father and son, Julio and Enrique, are competing for the same award.
He was not going to compete with my father. I'm not going to compete against my father. He's my blood.
And that's difficult. That'd be a lot of pressure for him.
And the winner is?
He was as nervous as could be.
Fonovisa was a huge independent company. They were specialized completely in Latin music. They were kings of the Latin chart.
Giant in South America.
Guillermo Santizo, who was the president of the company, received this tape from somebody named Enrique Martinez.
I was on my way to Argentina. I took the tape with me in the plane.
And on the way from Miami to Buenos Aires, which is 8.5 hours away, we both heard the single like 40 times. The interpretation was very personal. It gave us goosebumps.
And Guillermo was like, I want this guy. I don't know who he is, where he comes from. I really don't care. I want this guy at all costs.
That's when we found out that he was Enrique Iglesias.
They called me and they told me they want to introduce me someone quite secretly.
He had asked us not to make the negotiations that were happening public. Not until he had made the decision to tell his father.
News travels very fast in the community, especially when your father is already someone that's very familiar with the press.
We decided to go somewhere where no one could know us and no one could tell anyone that we were making an album. And so we went to Canada. We went to Toronto.
And people didn't even know where the hell he was.
He was supposed to be in school.
The only person that knew was Elvira, his nanny. It was the person he would confide in.
It was easy for Enrique to get away with it, since his mom lived in Spain and his father was always traveling.
He came to the studio to record the vocals.
Right away, I noticed he had a single idea in mind. It was success.
He would say all the time at the studio that he was going to sell millions. And the producer, he would say, Enrique, hold on, it's not that simple.
My first feeling was that he had some technical problems in the developing of his voice.
He still had a few things that were a little rough as far as his singing.
I remember asking him to go to see a voice teacher. He was not very happy with the idea, but he did it.
He will do whatever it takes to get there.
He puts that pressure upon himself to always be the best.
What my job was really is to introduce Enrique to the public now. This is the new guy. Enrique has never been in front of a camera before, never did anything. He's just a baby guy, and I have to handle him with kid gloves. It was a closed set. They wouldn't let anybody in because they weren't even sure he could even perform. And the first part of the shoot was the performance. I didn't have to do anything. He knew exactly how to portray the song. And I stopped within 15 seconds and said, "You kidding? This guy's unbelievable." He was just a heartthrob. He was more of a Frank Sinatra or something, or he was more of a Julio. He was just really passionate. But the B-roll with the girl was tough for him. And that was the part of really being an amateur of not knowing. There was a kissing scene a couple of times, and it was like he never kissed a girl before. That was a tough, tough part for him. He knew who he wanted to be, but he wasn't sure that it was going to come out onto the TV screen. After we did the first take, when he came over to look at himself, I think he was amazed himself to see that's who I really am.
The first single was released in September of '95.
A ballad's pretty tough to come out at first, especially coming from a kid. How many people are going to swallow this one?
Si tú te vas, te llevarás mi corazón.
The record company said we have to use Iglesias because he didn't want even to use it for the release of the album.
As a marketing strategy, it's a good point that he's Julio's son.
Then the company said, well, we are going to emphasize on Enrique, but we're going to put the Iglesias there, just in case.
The song went to #1. It was just an amazing smash.
Fans started going nuts and asking for the song on radio.
It was like 40 weeks at #1 in the Latin market. It was crazy.
All of a sudden, you know, he was huge, huge in Latin America.
Hola, soy Enrique Iglesias y estoy aquí en la playa, Miami.
He did this TV show in Mexico City. Tons of fans were trying to get into the studio. The studio was already packed.
And the minute Enrique left the TV show, all of the audience started chasing him.
They surrounded the van, all the fans. For him, it was a little scary because they started rocking it.
There's people in the roof, there's girls on the side.
It was kind of extreme, but those girls were not leaving for nothing in the world.
And it went out of control, obviously. Nobody expected that.
The only way we made it back to the hotel was getting Enrique into a taxi and having him lie on the floor. When he got to his room, he stood outside his window on the balcony.
And Enrique is waving to this crowd.
Like a true politician. To have a first album that transcends into such an enormous success is unheard of.
I don't even think Enrique expected it to be that big.
That was a surprise to most people, including his father.
His father found out about it in the press and in the radio stations.
Enrique Iglesias hoy convertido en una superestrella.
Julio wasn't happy at first, and he was basically paying for college, and he's going to be a what? A musician?
And he was in shock. Are you sure you know what you're getting into? You know, this is ruthless. You know, this business is, you're hot today and gone tomorrow. And Enrique's like, I'm not going to be gone tomorrow. You know, his career spoke for himself.
And the best Latin pop performance is Enrique Iglesias for Enrique Iglesias.
He didn't expect this to happen.
I don't know how many stories you can tell about an artist that receives a Grammy for his first album, that half of the songs he wrote.
He's got great timing. He has great music. And he's a good-looking guy. And, you know, it's in Iglesias.
When Enrique first came out with his album, it was always the media comparing him to his father.
People were on two sides. Those who thought it was great, and those who thought, oh well, he's just taking advantage of his daddy's last name.
Some people wouldn't take him seriously.
Here's this hotshot comes in, sells 7 million copies. They have to talk bad about him. But he didn't care, he stayed focused.
He didn't want to be the son of Julio. He just wanted to be Enrique Iglesias.
I have my own music, I have my own style. Respect me for who I am, and that's it.
Next, Enrique bites off more than he can chew.
Enrique wanted to do an arena tour, and everyone's like, no way, you're a new artist. Can't do an arena tour. He's going to walk into this place with just Spanish music. It's unheard of. This is a train wreck ready to happen, you know?
Then, Enrique sets his sights on America.
Moving out of the Spanish market to the English market is a huge risk.
There was a risk that people in Spanish were going to feel abandoned.
And later, a bootleg tape threatens to destroy it all.
Somebody starts saying that they had a tape of Enrique singing the song Rhythm Divine, and it was awful.
All I need.
It's kind of like someone was questioning his manhood.
Enrique's first album was a huge success. It played all over the Spanish-speaking world.
Achieving success was making him more confident about everything.
This was a guy who was selling so much. And yeah, they were ready to record a second album right away.
Vivir came out very strong.
The records were flying out of the shelf.
He had tons of number ones everywhere at radio.
That's when they really put the pressure on going out on tour. Because now, here are these songs, but where's the artist?
With his first tour, he wanted to do something huge. He wanted to do Madonna type of production.
Enrique wanted to do an arena tour. And everyone's like, no way, you know, you're a new artist, can't do an arena tour.
Everybody was kind of surprised that he wants to do a big production.
Guillermo said it wasn't realistic.
We were of the belief that Enrique had to start a little bit smaller.
If he started off with a football stadium, what places would we have left?
He's going to walk into this place with just Spanish music. It's unheard of. This is a train wreck ready to happen, you know?
I felt was not a very good decision.
Enrique's like, I'm not going to do a tour if it's not an arena tour or a stadium tour.
Enrique is a tourist, and they are strong animals.
When he sets his mind to do something, he's going to do it 150%, or he's not going to do it at all.
Enrique has a way of asking for things that you cannot say no.
He did a huge production, an American production, a really expensive one.
They had 80 people in the crew.
11 trailers.
3 planes flying in full of equipment. This is unbelievable.
Nobody has ever had a show like that.
The first show was in Odessa, Texas. As soon as he walked on that stage for the first time, I'll never forget. He landed on that stage like if he was born on the stage. You know, it was like his second home.
I never saw him move around like that.
Flying and going down to where the girls were.
I could not believe this was the same little Enrique that I taught.
This is like a circus, like an acrobat. We never taught him that.
Oh my God, I remember being with his nanny and she was, Enrique, hold yourself to the thing, you know.
Enrique, when he's on stage, you know, after growing up, going to these concerts, he's living his dream.
That same charisma, that same aura that I had seen in him in that little room where I met him just exploded on stage. Of course, there were 15,000 screaming girls in front of him.
People were like passing out on the front.
He's not the best of the voices, but obviously it's a very particular way of singing that it's very appealing to the crowds.
He saw his father so many times performing live that he knew how to handle the live performance.
When you worked with Julio, the first 10 rows of women were just dying.
Women have always gone crazy for my dad, yes.
And Enrique had the exact same thing.
He's incredibly romantic. Enrique saw a lot in his father that he has in himself too.
Everything just seemed like it blended together. Artist, image, music, all came into one with that first tour.
He proved to everybody that he had the talent to really make it happen, that he was as good as his dad, or better than his dad.
Now you'd think after 25 years, the American Music Awards would have seen it all. But something really unusual happened in this category.
For the first time ever, a father and son, Julio and Enrique, are competing for the same award.
It was the first time that Enrique and his father came head-to-head in the business.
And that's difficult. Now, there'd be a lot of pressure for him.
He goes, how can I compete with my father? I'm not going to compete against my father. It's my blood.
He was as nervous as could be.
And the winner is Julio Iglesias.
When his father won the award, he was happy for him. He wasn't disappointed.
Enrique might have been happy for his dad, but deep down, he wanted to win that award more than anything else.
Gracias
a todas las gentes que han votado, and more than anything, to tell my son that as much I will be on a stage, as much I will compete with them.
The remarks that he made were very interesting. I didn't quite understand it.
Enrique had a face I was not too happy.
It may be more of a Spanish matador macho type thing, like, you know, no, I'm the greatest, no, I'm the greatest.
It's a male thing, you know?
My interpretation was, you know, let's bring the best out of each other, let's compete.
Cosas del Amor took Enrique to another level. His writing style, his music, himself. Once that single came out, it was the final touch. That's what he needed. Bam.
Out of 3 albums that we released, we had 12 #1 singles.
It just turned into a virus. It got in everywhere.
Enrique became huge.
Fonovisa, without a doubt, put him on top of the Latin world.
He'd sold so many records in South America, and it was time to do something new.
He just wanted to keep on moving and become bigger, and singing in English was a tool to get there.
He wanted to go into the English market from the beginning.
Moving out of the Spanish market into the English market is a huge risk.
There was a risk that people in Spanish were going to feel abandoned.
The Latin people tend to be very jealous if you try to move into another market.
It could have killed his career.
Just because you were Spanish and singing these songs doesn't mean anything that America would like you. It's like starting from scratch.
Coming up, Enrique meets his match.
Ricky came onto the scene and blew everybody away. He was unbelievable.
Well, that was very good. That was excellent. But I mean, we don't have pineapples in our heads.
Enrique didn't want to be a part of this so-called Latin explosion.
And later, a legendary shock jock puts Enrique to the test.
Everywhere around the world, news start coming out that he couldn't sing.
Howard Stern actually compared this to a Milli Vanilli situation and even said they have to take the Grammy away.
When he walked into the studio itself with Howard, it was obvious that there was a bit of anxiousness. Both of them were like ready to get it on.
Enrique was planning to break into the American industry when Ricky Martin's success happened.
Ricky came onto the scene and blew everybody away. He was unbelievable.
Ricky is much more, you know, the show pop superstar.
Well, that was very good. That was excellent. But I mean, we don't have pineapples in our heads.
After that, Latin music exploded in mainstream Anglo music.
Enrique didn't want to be a part of this so-called Latin explosion.
He always thought, I'm out here for myself. And as soon as I start competing, then that's when I'm going to drown myself out. A boom only lasts so long, Enrique knew. I'm not in it for the boom. I'm in it for the long term.
You didn't really want to be like another Latin American artist crossing over. You wanted to try something a little different.
That's when the opportunity arose with Bailamos.
Esta noche, bailamos.
Bailamos was just a fun song. Let's dance in Spanish. That sounds great. Bailamos, yeah. And I couldn't imagine anyone more perfect for that song than Enrique. He was definitely fired up. Just really, really, really excited about the whole thing. He really was striving to have a hit record. He came over to record Bailamos. After he finished the vocal, and he said, I think we've got the hit.
Once that demo came into place, then Will Smith came into the picture.
Will Smith was interested in incorporating Bailamos into the Wild Wild West soundtrack.
I went to one of Enrique's concerts, and you just never heard this kind of sustained screaming. And you go to concerts and people scream, but it was sustained. And like the girls were taking turns, ah! And when she's getting ready to stop, she points to her girlfriend to take over. Ah! I was like, I want this guy on the soundtrack.
He had the movie to launch the first single, Bailamos.
It was an eye-opener to the American audience.
The entire marketplace opened up for him.
It just blew up from there, really.
He was entering a new era and entering a new stage, one step closer to conquering the world.
That was a huge turning point in his career. I think that's where he got the confidence. And he's like, I can do it. You know, this is it.
The next level was, in fact, the English album.
Enrique was shopping around for a record deal at the time.
It was very important for him to get into a company that could take him to higher positions.
He had all these opportunities, you know, coming his way with the movie and everything.
Enrique had this friend, Gerardo, which is Rico Suave. You know that song, Rico Suave, you know? Rico Suave. And he worked as a label manager in Interscope. Gerardo was like, Interscope is going to be the best label for you. Come, we'll treat you like a god here.
Enrique saw that Interscope was an aggressive company.
Enrique had a lot of faith in Jimmy Iovine. He produced, you know, U2, which is like Enrique's idols. He did Bruce Springsteen stuff, and so Enrique is like, right off the bat, he clicked with this guy. And Enrique is like, that's it, sold.
This seemed like a guy that had the staying power to win the big game. You didn't have to be a part-time genius or even that smart to know to sign this guy.
We started recording the Enrique album.
The record company wanted to move very quickly.
We wanted to take advantage of the momentum of the whole Bailamos being #1. We worked day and night to get that album done.
In this record, he was, you know, trying different rhythms, and some of the tracks were more dance-oriented, I guess.
Even in his English album, he always made sure there was Spanish adaptation, not as a selling point, just to relay the message, hey, I haven't forgotten about you guys.
The Enrique album just changed everything.
Smash #1 in like 7 countries, including America.
It was the point where suddenly, oh right, Enrique, yeah, this is an international superstar.
Enrique emerged as a legitimate, you know, concrete American artist. He's hit the pulse of America.
All of a sudden, this kid has a career, he's done it himself. His father was happy and, all right, doing a great job.
He now was a major star.
Somebody started saying that they had a tape of Enrique singing the song Rhythm Divine, and it was awful, terrible.
It was either someone doing a very funny imitation of Enrique, or maybe it was Enrique just having fun, overdubbed on music. When he heard it, of course he broke out laughing because it's a joke. It's quite hilarious, actually. This rumor, in fact, picked up a lot of speed. Everybody, everywhere, knew about this tape because someone sent Howard Stern the tape. And that's how it came to be via the airwaves. I mean, if you're going to send it to someone, you might as well send it to Howard Stern, right?
Everywhere around the country and around the world, news started coming out that he couldn't sing, that he was only a studio guy, and that maybe he was not even the guy that was singing on his albums.
Howard Stern actually compared this to a Milli Vanilli situation and even said they have to take the Grammy away, you know, Enrique's Grammy.
It became a huge thing.
He was just breaking in to the mainstream American industry. He still had to prove himself to that audience.
And, you know, that can ruin your career in 2 seconds.
He realized that it wasn't a joke. It's kind of like someone was questioning his manhood. He needed to prove to the people that he can sing. We flew immediately to New York.
he went to see Howard Stern.
When Enrique arrived to the studio that morning, it was a media circus. Enrique was set to perform acoustically.
I told Enrique, what are you doing? Because who sings at 7 o'clock in the morning?
I was kind of like, oh my God, you might crack a few times.
Anybody could make a mistake singing.
When he walked into the studio itself with Howard, it was obvious that there was a bit of anxiousness. Both of them were like ready to get it on, you know, and to figure out, is it true or isn't it true? But when he got like, it was so perfect. It was great.
And then, you know, Howard Stern changed and said, okay, forget all of what I said. You definitely can sing. I'm sorry. And he started making jokes about, you know, his sexual life and whatever.
Howard Stern said, you have silenced your critics.
Everybody was talking about how good he did. That news went around the world, and then the song became #1.
It was one more chance that he had to prove that he was an artist, that he was a performer, that he was not someone who was daddy's son.
Enrique Iglesias is who he is because it's in his heart.
When you have a force inside of you, you don't stop that.
He was very focused on what he wanted to do. He had a vision of himself.
He wasn't born a star. He definitely made himself a star. He's worked harder than anybody else I've ever seen to get there.
He had to work even harder for the others who didn't take him seriously because he was daddy's son.
That's what this really was all about. He needed to prove to himself that he could do this without Dad's help.
He's managed to achieve that. People take him for Enrique and not, you know, son of Julio.
Julio doesn't hate me for saying this, but Enrique is the one who's on top. We're way on top.
Living in the shadows of a great one is always going to be, you're always going to be compared no matter what.
There are two different artists. We are talking about apples and oranges here.
He's always been proud of his dad. He always will be proud of his dad.
You got to live up to that name, and he has. He really has.